Hi everyone, this is the video for the Component 2 quiz retake. So the first thing you had to do on the Component 2 quiz was to calculate the equivalent fraction. So we're basically turning 4.4 into a fraction. And the way we would say 4.4 is 4 and 4/10. So the way to write that would be 4 and 4/10. So I just need to make sure to simplify the fraction, and since the numerator and the denominator are divisible by 2, I would have 4 and 2/5. Can't simplify any further, so that one's finished. Now for number 2, it's different because we have 0.3 repeated, so I can't just simply write 3/10 because it's 0.3 repeated. So I have to use the equation where I set up x is equal to 0 and 3/10 repeated. And since there's one digit that's being repeated, I'll multiply by 10 on both sides. So this would be 10x. 0.3 repeated, let me do this off to the side. Remember, 0.3 repeated means 0.3333 on and on forever. And since we're multiplying by 10, that decimal would move one place to the right, so we would end up with 3.3333, which would be 3.3 repeated. Now in order to get rid of that repeating part, we want to subtract x, and remember that x is equal to 0.3 repeated. So on the left we would end up with 9x, and on the right the 0.3 repeated would cancel out, so 3 minus 0 would be 3. And then to get x by itself, since it's attached to the 9 with multiplication, I'll divide by 9 on both sides. That way these cancel and I get x equals 3/9. But we're not done yet because 3 and 9 are both divisible by 3. So this would simplify to 1/3. And that's the final answer there. Now for the next part, we're calculating the equivalent decimal. So we're converting 7/8 to a decimal. So the way we do that is long division. 7 divided by 8. So you would ask yourself, how many times does 8 go into 7? And since it doesn't, we'll add a 0. But since the number's done, we're adding a decimal point here. So now we say, how many times does 8 go into 70? Which would be 8 times, because 8 times 8 would be 64. And then we subtract those, and we would get 6. And so then I need to bring down another 0. So I ask myself, how many times does 8 go into 60? That would be 7 times, because 7 times 8 is 56. And we subtract it and we get 4. I'll need to bring down another 0. So how many times does 8 go into 40? That would be 5 times, and 5 times 8 would be 40. So I end up with 0, so I know I'm done. So the answer is terminating, and it's 0.875. Then we've got 1 and 1/9. Now I'm going to add in my final answer. Since there's a whole number here, it's going to be 1 point something. The only part I need to convert is the 1/9. So I'll do that by doing 1 divided by 9. And I ask myself, how many times does 9 go into 1? It doesn't, so I add a 0 and a decimal point in order to add another 0 here. So how many times does 9 go into 10? 1 time, and 1 times 9 would be 9. Subtract that, you get 1. Bring down another 0. How many times does 9 go into 10? 1 time. 1 times 9 would be 9. Subtract that, we get 1. Bring down a 0. How many times does 9 go into 10? 1 time. 1 times 9 is 9. Okay, you start to see that this is going to continue on and on and on forever. So instead of writing 0.111, I'm just going to write 0.1 repeated. Then we've got, what's the decimal expansion of 4? Well, remember that would just be writing it as a decimal, so 4.0. The decimal expansion of 2/5, we'll need to convert that by doing 2 divided by 5. How many times does 5 go into 2? It doesn't, so I add a 0 and a decimal point. How many times does 5 go into 20? That would be 4 times. 4 times 5 would be 20. And when I subtract this, I get 0, so it's terminating, and it's simply 0.4. And now remember, we discussed this in class. There's a decimal expansion of every number. That would be true. So that's all for the corrections. Now you can take the retake. If you need more help, though, make sure you come see your teacher. Bye, guys.